Spoke about the need to demonstrate a roadmap for the Trans Mountain pipeline to be completed, to show Western Canadians that there's going to be progress on that.
Tonight, West wishes. Conservative leaders get private meetings with the Prime Minister. But is that all they got?
Idle no more was a great lesson to all of us. Last night was a really great lesson to Don and me.
A cherry off top. A mea culpa from the now former straight man to bombastic broadcaster Don Cherry.
We got to see how the surveys worked, and he explained us how they work and what they were used for.
And all hands on deck. A group of young people goes deep, real deep, in the waters of the NWT. Good evening, I'm Rick Harp. Welcome to APTN National News. We begin in Ottawa, where today Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met with a couple of Conservative leaders. Both Andrew Scheer and Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe had morning meetings with the PM, both coming with a list of priorities. But as Todd Lamoran reports, neither seemed all that happy with the outcome.
Scott Moe met Trudeau bolstered by the fact only Conservative MPs were elected last month in Saskatchewan, partly the result of a growing sense of alienation in Western Canada. Moe didn't hide his disappointment.
I came today to hear about what he was going to do differently to support the industries and the people in our province, and I can tell you this, I did not hear that there was going to be anything different. I heard more of the same.
Premier Moe asked for a pause in the carbon tax, fairer distribution of national wealth, and better policies to get Saskatchewan goods to market.
Not only from Saskatchewan, but from all of our provinces, beyond the construction of the TMX pipeline. That is how we create wealth in our province, and that is how we ultimately share that wealth with the rest of the nation.
Andrew Scheer met Trudeau earlier in the morning, and again brought up his plan for a national energy corridor.
To see if that can be implemented, or at least the early work started. Spoke about the need to demonstrate a roadmap for the Trans Mountain pipeline to be completed, to show Western Canadians that there's going to be progress on that.
Scheer would not say if he would try to defeat the Liberals' minority government if Conservative priorities were ignored.
It's up to Mr. Trudeau to find common ground to get his throne speech passed. So I highlighted the areas that we would be focusing on, the parts of our platform that we believe should be implemented.
Scheer's request to reconvene Parliament before the end of the month seemed to be undercut while he was shaking Trudeau's hand, because at about the same time, an email went out saying December 5th was when MPs were going back to work. Todd Lamoran, APTN National News, Ottawa.
And speaking of chilly relations, a well-known figure from the world of hockey continues to face fallout. Yesterday, Sportsnet announced it's parted company with Don Cherry, following a televised mid-game rant about immigrants and Remembrance Day. Many were outraged following Cherry's controversial comments, and now his longtime right-hand man is also speaking out. In a video statement broadcast on Rogers' hometown hockey show, Ron McLean said that Cherry's remarks were hurtful, discriminatory, and, quote, flat out wrong. McLean also concedes he neither caught nor responded to the remarks during the live broadcast. He then cited the words of Kitchener Council Chair Catherine Tenise.
Catherine Tenise, Tsuut'ina First Nation, once said, in any wrongdoing, the real key is recognition and acknowledgement. And I wanted to let you know that first, and then you work on the relationship. So that it isn't divisive, so that something can be a unifying event. Idle no more was a great lesson to all of us. Last night was a really great lesson to Don and me. We were wrong, and I sincerely apologize.
To northwestern Ontario now, where a First Nation is busy preparing for imminent evacuation. Last Saturday, Bearskin Lake First Nation declared a state of emergency after an ice jam along the Severn River began to flood. It's affected major roads, including the only road to the airport. Indigenous Services Canada says community infrastructure, like the water treatment plant, is at risk. Bearskin Lake wants help with drilling the ice jam. Indigenous Services says it's deciding on the safest course of action. Meanwhile, the province says it will evacuate 357 community members to Kapuskasing beginning tomorrow. You can share your thoughts on anything you see here on the newscast. Here's how. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/APTN News. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for the latest in Indigenous news. And coming up right after tonight's newscast on Face to Face, an extended sit-down with Manitoba NDP MLA Bernadette Smith, someone who knows firsthand the pain of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Her own sister went missing back in 2008. And on tonight's episode, Smith will share her concern about the way media all too often portrays those affected.
We often don't humanize them, and with my sister's case, that really hurt how the public reacted to her case. Like, there was a lot of blame, you know. Well, she put herself in that situation. You know, where was her family? Why was she on the street? What do you think would happen, right? Rather than painting this picture of, you know, she's a mother of 4, she's missed, she's loved.
Time for a break here on the newscast. When we return, a welcome success story out of British Columbia and the battle against opioid overdoses. Find out how they've helped save tens of thousands of lives. Please stay tuned. Our first weather outlook begins in St. John's. Rain and 16. Fredericton, mostly cloudy and 2. Kuujjuaq, mix of sun and cloud -9. Inukjuak, snowy -3. Chibougamau, rainy -9. Gaspé, snowy -2. North Bay, mix of sun and cloud -7. Sault Ste. Marie, snow -3. Big Trout Lake, snowy -9. A snowy -4 for Thunder Bay. Churchill, mix of sun and cloud -12. Mostly cloudy in Puckatawagan, -10. Princess Harbor, mix of sun and cloud -7. Dauphin, mostly sunny, -8. Saskatoon, mostly sunny, -5. Estevan, a mix of sun and cloud, -5. Stony Rapids, a snowy -9. Buffalo Narrows, mix of sun and cloud, -7. And welcome back. The Mamaway MMIWG gathering wrapped up over the weekend in Regina, an event meant specifically for the families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Myrna LaPlante is the co-chair for the Saskatoon-based MMIWG support group, Iskwewa Wichiwitochik. Attending in a personal capacity, LaPlante said the gathering helped her. A particular highlight, a panel of children of MMIWG, which LaPlante described as powerful. LaPlante also says conference organizers did a great job in meeting the needs of attendees, from mental health supports to elders on site.
It is the first larger gathering in Saskatchewan, although there have been numerous events in the last years that I've been involved since 2007. There's been ongoing annual vigils. Some organizations have put different events on that, to bring families together. So there have been numerous events that have happened, but this is the first larger family gathering of families all over the province.
Still in the West, the British Columbia Centre for Disease Control says they are reversing overdoses and saving lives amidst the opioid epidemic. With more on how, APTN's Tina House.
50,000. That's the number of lives that the BC Centre for Disease Control says have been saved since 2012, when take-home naloxone kits became readily available. For Billy James, who lives on Vancouver's downtown east side, he's overdosed 27 times, and naloxone has brought him back every time.
Naloxone's a wonder drug. If it wasn't for naloxone, half the east side would be dead.
Naloxone reverses overdoses from fentanyl, heroin, methadone, and oxycodone. Jane Buxton works with the BC Centre for Disease Control. She says she's happy that they are saving lives, but says it's a grim reminder about the deadly epidemic.
The information that's come out from First Nations Health Authority has shown that Indigenous people, First Nations people, are at higher risk of overdose and higher risk of overdose deaths. We have been seeing quite a bit of deaths in these folks occurring in urban areas. It's not just in rural areas that overdoses are occurring.
Buxton says there are 1,600 sites across BC to get a kit and are easy to use.
So there is a protector, so when you snap, you don't cut your fingers. We have the syringes. There are, if you're concerned about anything around, there's gloves. And of course, because we advise rescue breathing, there is a mask that you can give breath. There is the simple Save Me steps that are in the kit.
Over 500,000 kits have been distributed throughout BC to organizations, communities, and individuals. Here at the Oak Ridge Mall is a stand that the public has access to 24/7 that can help save a life. It contains a naloxone kit, paddle boards for someone having a heart attack, and is connected to 911. It's the only one in Vancouver so far, with 2 more stands in Surrey through a pilot project with St. John's Ambulance. Billy is thankful for naloxone, but has some advice for others.
Take it from me, don't touch it, man. You know, it's not worth it at all. You end up like me, you know. I used to wrestle, had a scholarship to SFU, the works. Now look at me. Anorexic and down on Hastings. It's not a life for nobody, man.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
The Yukon government is set to open a so-called Housing First residence in the territory's capital city. Taking a harm reduction approach, the new 16-unit facility hopes to take pressure off the Whitehorse Emergency Shelter and help people get off the streets. Equipped with a private washroom, cooking facilities, and an open concept living space, residents will start to move in at the end of this month. Not everyone in the area is happy about the idea, though. Today, Territorial Minister of Health and Social Services Pauline Frost tried to address their concerns.
I'm aware that some of the neighbors of this new residence have expressed concerns that there will be people gathering outside or buildings similar to what is happening at the shelter. This, of course, is a very different type of project than the Whitehorse Emergency Shelter. This is a private residence with staff supervision and supported living program.
We now go to the Northwest Territories, where a body of water deep in secrets could one day tell us more about the impacts of climate change. And now, thanks to a $1 million facelift, an old research vessel is once again navigating the Great Slave Lake. Among its crew, a group of young people from the region. Our reporter Charlotte Moritz-Jacobs has more.
What lies below the surface of North America's deepest lake? Researchers and youth are working together for those answers. 5 youth from the Northwest Territories joined the not-for-profit Arctic Research Foundation on the Nahidak. It was its maiden voyage, surveying Great Slave Lake.
It was amazing. It was really cool to see everything, how everything works, and like all the crew members working together to have it like actually assembled and for us to actually go out and to the East Arm and stuff, and it was great.
Janae Dragis is only 17, but already she knows she wants to pursue a career in environmental work.
It's important because we get to know like how the freshwaters work and stuff, and like we could probably like use this to like for the future for the older youth generation, considering most of the lakes and stuff are getting polluted in the oceans and stuff, and it'll like help us live hopefully if we just keep it the way it is.
They learn from experts like Eddie Carmack, a senior research scientist emeritus. They looked at signals of climate change and talked about the repercussions to the food web.
This is a really important lake, and it deserves the understanding. These kind of things can change in the future with climate change. The timing of the overturn, the intensity of the overturn, all of these things will affect the ice cover, its thickness, when it freezes, when it melts. So these are the kind of questions we want to start.
It was the first time Dragis had conducted tests on the lake she grew up on.
mostly testings. Like every 6 hours, they put like a CTD in to check like the conductivity, the temperature, and the depth of the lake. We got to like see how the surveys worked, and like he explained us how they worked and what they were used for, and he showed us how to like splice a rope for. It's like a technique to like attach ropes together, and they like let us put on like flotation suits and stuff, and actually brought us on the lake with the small boats and to go like fishing and all that.
Nahidik, which will soon be renamed with the help of students, is the Arctic Research Foundation's 5th vessel. The trip was to test the waters, but there are big plans to bring the Nahidik out on the Mackenzie River next summer.
We're going to continue to be in touch with these 5 around everything from what they want this vessel to look like. So how can we make the Nahidik a better boat for running science programs for kids, to what research they want to do on Great Slave Lake, like what actually is interesting to them about this body of water.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Time for one more break here on the newscast. When we return, a profile of Gladys Raddick, a staunch advocate for families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Please stay with us. And we begin in northern Alberta, high level -11 and snow. Grand Prairie mostly sunny and 3. Red Deer, snow +2. Calgary, a sunny 6. Campbell River, snowy rain and 11. Dease Lake, a snowy -1. Prince George, mix of sun and cloud and 5. Mayo, snowy -18. Watson Lake, a sleety -10. Norman Wells, snowy -10. Wrigley, mix of sun and cloud, -18. Tuktoyaktuk, -18 and snow. Much the same at Colville Lake, but -20. Repulse Bay, snowy -4. Baker Lake, mix of sun and cloud, -20. Igloolik, -15, little bit of cloud. Cape Dorset, a snowy -6. Thanks for staying with APTN National News. For over a decade, Gladys Raddick has been a staunch advocate for families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Our reporter, Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, followed Raddick on her very last cross-Canada trip. It's a story that was nominated for Best Narrative Short by the Northwest Territories Professional Media Association. Here now, another look at part 1.
On the side of the road, it just reminds me of little crosses, because there's so many family members that are missing, and who knows if they're thrown into those bushes.
Daughters, mothers, sisters, aunties, grandmas, and friends. Gladys Raddick has been fighting for all of those taken along the infamous Highway of Tears in northern British Columbia.
When we walk through the country, throughout the country, those spirits are still in there. I can feel them.
She has seen the country, literally, one step at a time.
Before the walks, nobody was talking about the missing and murdered women. And our families, the family members right across the nation, were in their own pain, in their own little world. There was nobody doing anything about it. They thought nobody cared.
A well-known advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, she has walked from BC to Ottawa 7 times. But it's the end of the road, her very last cross-Canada trip. She's getting ready to drive from Terrace, BC to Gatineau, Quebec to witness the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls deliver their final report. And APTN is joining her on this road trip. We start bright and early at her house in Terrace. There's over 110 photos to tape on her car. It all started with one, her niece Tamara Chipman, who went missing from Prince Rupert in 2005. A year later, Raddick started the Tears for Justice March. She didn't have any money or a vehicle. When do we want it? Now! But she did have momentum as families walked alongside, supporting each other.
What we did was far beyond any organization or, paid government employees. I think what we did came from our hearts, and I think that was more meaningful than anything else. because we didn't need to have government funding to do this. We relied on our people.
Gladys has inspired her community, and with that, there's many people to say goodbye to before heading out, including her sister Lorna Brown, who lives nearby and has also been an MMIWG advocate for years.
Lorna's always been my go-to gal in this family because she believes in me.
We want to invite different people out and so that they can actually hear the stories, they can hear, I mean, I think people hear about this in the news, but then it's really, you know, it's uncomfortable.
Braddock says there's a lot on the line when she gets to Gatineau.
I've been anxious actually for the last month or so, anticipating what's going to happen, and also realizing that this is closing the circle, it's closing that gap that I set out to do back in 2008.
You guys want to make your way over there?
Before the inquiry, families only had each other to rely on.
When we were doing our walks, we went through a lot of emotions because we were all family members. And I think for me, meeting all those family members was probably the best thing that could happen to me in my life.
Gladys has a lot to reflect on before the trip. Her years of advocacy have been rife with lateral violence, something that could even take place at the final report.
I chalk it off as some of us are at different stages of healing. Sometimes it gets to me, but on the other times I think about my families. I think about the families that I know and what would they do if I decided to quit.
One last stop to grab an important item to bring to the inquiry.
Good old water from Prince Rupert, BC.
Her son-in-law has helped with many of Raddick's walks. And while he can't go with her on this road trip, he is hopeful that one important truth is echoed in Gatineau.
People think that the girl went missing because she was into drugs or whatnot. Well, she went missing because somebody made a choice to kill her. She went missing because somebody made a choice to murder her and leave her somewhere.
It's time to go. 5,000 miles, her last trip to hear recommendations, including her own, on how to end violence against Indigenous women. And Raddick is ready.
How long do you think you'll keep fighting?
Till I die. This is something that you can't just throw it away.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Terrace.
And although she didn't take home the award in the end, we at APTN News are proud of Charlotte's efforts and congratulate everyone on their accomplishments in just being nominated. And to see the full list of nominees, head over to nwtpma.com. That's it for the newscast. Tune in tomorrow for more of what's making headlines in Indigenous country. I'm Rick Harp. Have a good night.